How are you,
Good
Mike?
morning, fellas.
Good morning.
So, just so everyone knows, Mike McAllen, Podcasting for Associations. Although you don't need really any introduction because everybody in the industry knows you anyway. So,
Because of my podcast, huh?
was
And
that back?
also, you haven't paid for it, so
Was that back at Grass Shack Media?
Yeah, I used to have a company called Grass Shack Events and Media for a long time, doing production for events and stuff, and that's what I had the podcast for in the beginning, years like 15 years ago,
Yeah.
which is crazy. Yeah, I did it weekly for 10 years, which was insane. Like looking back on that with no breaks.
But it's really funny though because talk about being way ahead of your time.
Yeah, no one knew how to download a podcast back then. It was perfect. It was like I could say whatever I want because no one was listening.
See, but I was listening.
Some people were, yeah. It was fun. It was a really fun thing, and I'm so glad I did it for just the networking of it. I just met so many people, and that's why I did it. It's because I could talk to you, whoever, just I could bend their ear for back and forth, find out about them for an hour. It was just fantastic.
Yeah, and that is one of the great things about podcasting, right? And I know we're going to talk about podcasting for associations, right? And organizations that do conferences and events. That's kind of why we're here. But I mean, what an amazing way, to reach your members, right? And especially with big associations where you have like these rock stars within the, let's just say it's a medical association, right? You have these famous surgeons or whatever. What a great way to make them a little bit more human, a little bit more approachable. Bring them on a show.
Totally. And the thing, you want to build community, which is perfect for. It's very intimate, which is hard to get with a big association like that because it's, people are doing other things. It's kind of an eyes up listening thing. So you're walking your dog, listening to it, or you're doing something else. You're in the car, standing in line. It's something it's such an intimate. It's more powerful than other forms of media. I mean, video could be, but you still have to sit in front of a screen to watch a video, right? I guess you can't walk around with your phone and watch video, but the audio portion of it, of podcasts.
Then you get hit by a car.
Yeah. And it does the whole, builds trust and authority and loyalty and all those things. Podcasts are fantastic for that. So it's perfect for associations because, they want to get at their members and keep connected between events too.
Because
it's kind of turned into something too, a big thing at events. Like we went to all of the events of all our clients and set up like a booth or stage, or we're just in a back room somewhere doing all, getting all those, because everybody's in one place at one time. So you can get, how the scheduling is for podcasting is kind of a pain in the ass. So it's like, that's a perfect way to just get all those interviews and talk to those influencers and those people who are the rock stars of the industries.
Because I think that's a brilliant thing to do because there's only a certain set of people who are going to be willing to stand on stage to be interviewed, like the fireside chats. There's only a small proportion of those who are confident enough to do it. However, you can drag someone who's not too confident for a one-on-one chat and just record it, and you're more likely to get a better interview, is better chat, better content, so you get more people doing it, more variation.
Yeah, and then on the other end too, podcasting works very well for advertising, and you have a very niche audience usually for association. Obviously, they have those people at the event who are wanting the ear of your membership, so it's a great way to make a little extra dough too for the associations, which is all kind of newer for a lot of them. Which we've found, but they're making money too, which is another thing. And those ads are something the members want to hear too. It's not like you're getting a MeUndies ad or something, it's like, or a mattress or something.
It's not another ad for Babbel.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, and that's true, right? And I always said that, to a lot of organizations, especially when you're talking about social marketing and things like that. I never care about advertising that's directed toward me that is something that I would want to buy. It doesn't bother me, whatever, one iota. Yeah. So I think that's great, for association, and it is an awesome way to bring in a little bit of non-dues revenue.
And another thing too, sorry to interrupt you, but it's like the content that you get, it's from a podcast, you can slice and dice that into you get the transcript, you can make blog posts, you can do, those little, you can do all kinds of things to still touch your members with that content that you're getting from, besides the interview and the podcast. You can slice and dice stuff.
Oh yeah, because you can turn if your person you're talking to has that sort of golden nugget of information, you can turn that into a 30-second audio clip, which is perfect for like Twitter or Instagram or something like that, and it's instant content.
Or YouTube, too. That is like a big thing. People listen to a lot of podcasts on YouTube, which is interesting to me.
Yeah, I actually do. Yeah, it's, if I'm sitting here at my desk, because again, unfortunately I'm all under construction, but when I have the other computers and they're all set up, I'll throw something on YouTube and I'm just listening to it in the background. It's always annoying. But I think for a lot of associations, a lot of membership organizations, the pool of potential guests is so deep, and I don't want them to lose sight and only go after like the big rock stars of their industry, but even sponsors, right, that normally pay to have a spot. If they have a new product, it's not a bad topic for an episode in a non-selling way.
Yeah. It's interesting. It is such the Wild West now too, because I was just seeing recently there's a big uproar of people paying people to be on podcasts, and it's just like, well, why not? It's because they weren't saying that they were. It
right.
wasn't an ad. That's the big deal. But you were right that I think those are the people to bring on. I have a friend who has he does a security podcast. I'm blanking on the name of it, but he's got a thing where the sponsors will put an ad on the first 2 episodes, and then the 3rd episode, the sponsor is actually on the show. So it's like, and for branding, supposedly works really well. And he sells out every year for that. Like, sells out the whole year in the beginning of the year for the security, computer security. The new CISO position. Anyway, because it's like, but it's just interesting how that is. Like it is.
But again, I don't have a problem with that.
I don't
right.
Either.
As long as you're telling me what's going on, I'm pretty much good with it. I don't mind listening. Remember back in the days when people used to sit up, Bob, I don't know if they had this in the UK, but here in the US, when you hit midnight on your local television station from midnight to 5 a.m., it was infomercials. And some of those damn things were interesting.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
How many times did you wander in from the bar at 2 o'clock in the morning and you ended up watching 2 hours of infomercials?
Right.
They were actually entertaining, right? And so I done correctly, associations have an unlimited pool of guests, right? You can bring on the sponsors, your speakers, your board, your members. Bring the members on, feature the members.
Yeah.
Meet the members. What a great segment that would be.
Yeah. And I actually have been I talked to this one. I don't know if you heard of this Rumble Studio. It's a way you can send out questions to people, and then they can do an audio response.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So it's like I was just talking to one of my clients about it. I was going to start a podcast using it just for my own company. I don't have a podcast, which is, it's like it's too much work. Basically, why I don't have one now, because I do it for other people. It's like.
Well, yeah, if you're doing 50 of them, one more occasion, so I might put you over the edge.
But it's like this. It's really cool. The guy's name is the guy who started is Carl Robinson. He called me on one of those calls, a fact-finding call, to see if they should do this. Then they did it. Then I bought it right away because it's kind of cool. You just go to a page and you hit a button and you record. And then you could ask the same questions to all your members, and then feature them on the podcast. So just what you were saying, Bob, or it's just like. It's something interesting. So there's just ways of. It's great to get your members on there. Obviously, if you can get your listeners on there, that's the best thing for your podcast.
Yeah. So what are some other ways? Advertising. We know it is what it is. But what are some other unique ways that associations can use podcasts to generate revenue? I've got a couple ideas, but I wanted to get your thought.
Well, we use dynamic ad insertion too, so we can pull the ads in and out. So they're selling their whole. The more episodes they have, the more valuable their podcast becomes. We do that. You don't have to do that, obviously. You can just bake it right into the show. a lot of them use it for selling. Podcasts in general make money when they sell their own stuff, so if you have courses or education that they sell, they can make money that way. That's a great way. I mean, at the event, you can do things too. You can have it as a sponsored stage and that kind of thing.
That was my big idea, right?
Was it? Yeah.
Can I? I'll tell everyone my huge idea, right? Which now people can go and steal. It's okay, I don't mind. On a trade show floor, right? If you have a podcast heavy industry, where I'll use, let's see, the International Sheep Shearing Association. That's always my go-to, right? I think they actually might exist, but whatever. If you have, 50 people out there that do, podcasts, set up a podcast stage in the middle of the show floor and have it running have people recording episodes during the whole show. And if you can kind of elevate that a little bit so that it looks down on the show floor, you could do great video podcasts up there. There's all kinds of cool stuff that you could do. And what a sponsorable.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So what does the future of associations and podcasting look like? Are we in our infancy, or is this thing becoming middle-aged?
I don't know. It's like the whole podcast thing is like there's so many people saying that they're doing podcasts, but then you look at actually how many are doing it, and people just pod fade. They can't keep it up because it's another thing for people to do. And a lot of times the association staffs are small, so it's kind of hard to have another thing for them to do. But really, there are not that many podcasts out there. I think it's like they say like 20% have done more than 5 episodes, or something. It's because that app came out, really, that Anchor app.
I love Anchor.
Yeah, but it was like so many did 2 podcasts to 2 episodes or 1 pub. And so that's counted. So there's like, people were using it. It's a great little app, but it's just like that thing has like kind of killed the stats on what you really have to look in at it. In saying that, it's like I think it's still so new. For them, a lot of people. At least people don't say what's a podcast anymore. But
no. But Bob, that's one of the things we're running into on FizzPod, right? We built that little thing that'll
that's so cool.
All of the industry.
This is the thing, trying to find active podcasts. I've gone through Listen Notes, which is a great little, I'll say little, it's a huge site, but it's tracking podcasts from everywhere. And if you do a search for like event or event industry, you'll come across loads, but last episode was 2019 or 2020, and so many have just fallen along the way. And it's for the exact reason you state, is that they think they've got some spare time. Oh, I know, I'll do a podcast. Then it hits them that, no, you haven't got the legs. It's not anything you can sustain over a long period. You run out of ideas, and besides, you've become busy and nobody's listening in the first 3 episodes, so they quit.
And you like to figure it takes like 10 hours to do an episode, really, for most people. When you think about scheduling, which takes hours, and then writing and researching for questions, and then doing the recording, doing the editing, writing the show notes, and then posting it takes like 10 hours for most people, unless you've done it a lot. Then you could fly through it and have your little hacks and stuff. But it's interesting. It takes a lot of time, so it is hard, and that's actually what keeps us in business, because
right. You've got
over all that for them. Like, they don't do anything, so they just record and they're gone.
And it's so funny how many people do approach it, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll just show up and talk to somebody every week, and it isn't, right. I know you.
Yeah.
We've known each other for a long time. For us getting together for a conversation is no big deal, right? We would do this over a beer. It'd be the same exact conversation,
right?
More swear words.
Yes, definitely more swear words. But if you're an association and you're going to bring on the industry's number one whatever, there's research to be done.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to have your questions laid out. A lot of times you want to send those questions to that person so they can kind of craft their answers so that it's an entertaining show. You're not doing it you're not doing investigative journalism, right? You don't want to pop anybody with a question that, you want them to have great, thoughtful answers. And so you may share those questions with them beforehand.
Yeah. Yeah. It is good. Like we talked about doing stuff at events, it's really great for that because you can batch a lot of your shows too, which is something, like never, have them all batch. So you have like one of our clients, this crazy woman who's fantastic. She works for the cardiac nurses. I should know their name. There might, I always go by the acronyms, but PCNA. But she went and did 30 interviews at their conference in 3 days. 30. So they had a big bankroll. What do you call that? A big, big bank of shows. That's a great way for them to have not be so slammed having to do it all the time too. I mean, it's a lot of work, but that way you can knock out a bunch of them. So then we just have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I even think flying in, a day before, and having those specific guests or something so that you're not taking away from your own time at your event.
Yeah,
great
idea. It's a great idea.
You pop for a hotel room for those 10 or 15 people that you're going to interview, have them come in the day before, then it's quiet. You can, you got the space, use it.
Yeah. And I think that going back to your question about like, where is this? I think that's probably the future of, of this stuff. I mean, people already come in and do video that way for a lot of them. They'll sit down at a room. So it's the same thing, and that's another thing too. You can get the video, rip the audio, use that, for your podcast if you're going to.
Yeah. And essentially, what we're doing here, Bob and I decided that we were going to go live every single day in August, just to show we could, and to show that even if you are swamped and busy, you can still do it. But because we're not sharing screens on a lot of these are perfect podcasts. So this episode will be ripped, the audio will be pulled out, and it's going to go up as a regular episode.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love when people do that. Like that's the thing with that Rumble Studio thing I was telling you too. They were saying like, did 100 podcasts in 100 days or something like that too. Like the challenge they had or something within the business.
Yeah, I've got to go check that out because that is a really cool idea.
Yeah, I'm excited about fooling with it. Like just to try some things, like because it would be very powerful for the members, like to be able to send them out to them, let them just ask a question.
Yeah, and see the response. And we all know, right? Every organization knows those 10 people that you're gonna get responses from. They're the 10 people that always raise their hand at the comp, but if you keep it going long enough, you will start to hear other voices.
It's basically a live survey. So it's like, how associations love surveys of everything, data on everything. It's kind of an interesting thing, like to actually get their voice, to hear them,
Yeah. And that's a powerful thing, right? And the members appreciate it when people listen.
Are they sponsoring this podcast?
No, but they ought to be.
Yeah, but none of us have used it yet, though. So that's the thing of.
So all right, so let's now that we're getting on near, we've got a few minutes left because we try and keep these things to 30 minutes. 2 questions. What is the number one thing that associations can do to get started podcasting? What is the first thing that they need to do?
I would say they need to figure out what the topics are that their members want to hear about and stick to that. I think that's the main thing. I mean, I have a lot of different things I want to say right now, but I think that one is.
Well, you can wrap it.
Everyone's excited about doing it, but it's like figure out what that, avatar of your members wants to hear every time, I think that's the most important thing. I want to also say they have to be consistent and keep them coming out at the same time all the time, build a habit with their members,
Yeah.
Don't do one, then wait 3 months, do another one. It's like people want to hear, they want to put it in their calendar. And I mean, I don't know, psychologically, it's just works that way. Hey, it's coming out on Tuesday. I'm going to listen to it. That gets in their habit of things to do.
And that is so frustrating for a listener. There was a podcast I had found, and I didn't look at the date on it, right? And I saw that they were weekly episodes, whatever. They were pretty consistent. So I dove in and I subscribed and, was listening to a few, realized they were from back in 2019. And now they're doing them like every 6 weeks, every 12 weeks. And it's frustrating,
Yeah, and you can talk to your members about that. It's like, that's the thing. Like one of my, I'm like an advisor on this kids news podcast. It's like they break down the news to be like for kids, and then they have a question and answer thing at the end. It's really cool. But they had just during the summer put down a podcast every day that said they weren't going to be on. Like they had, because they're taking the summer off, and then they didn't do it, and they put it down every day saying they weren't going to be there, which was like people were up. I think like people got upset about it, obviously, because it's putting another show in your phone every single day. But they were telling them that they were going to be back. So what they did was the right thing. They just should have done it once
a week,
or once a week, yeah, or something, yeah. Or once a month through that thing. Hey, those like bonus episodes are fantastic too. If you could just do a bonus episode in there and just say, hey, this is something's happening, or throw something down the feed, like,
or take a page from radio and do a 5-minute shtick that you are out for the summer. This is a rebroadcast of 2019.
Bam. Yeah.
Bam.
That's the thing. Like, and then that's another thing too. Look at your stats and see what's your most popular episode. Put it down the thing. Like if you can't think of something to do, like, hey, we're going to rebroadcast this, just what you said.
Yeah. Or do a highlight show.
Yeah. Well, that's work.
If you think of it a bit like a blog, you can follow the same sort of strategy. That way you can keep doing episodes. You got to have the content that you can do more than 3 podcast episodes. You got to be able to keep it going.
Yeah.
And if you've got enough, you can then do it every Tuesday or whatever it is you want to do. So it's cool stuff. This is one of those things that we could just talk for hours about.
But I do have one more question.
Uh-oh.
What? No, and this is actually a good one. This is what I tell all of my speakers, because sometimes with speakers at conferences, especially virtual events, sometimes it's hard to get the questions coming from the audience. They just don't type them in or whatever. So I always got, so you seed questions, you plant questions, and the one question that I always tell every speaker that they should be their question, their planted question is, what is the one thing you wish people would ask, but they never do when it comes to associations and podcasts?
Oh my God. One thing I wish they would ask,
but they never do.
Can I send you more money? How's that?
Hey, whatever works.
Sorry, no, I can't think of anything else. That's a good question.
I think we're going to have you back on, Mike. I think we're going to have to dedicate a proper podcast episode to this.
It's going to come to you in like an hour. You're going to be like...
I'm thinking of all kinds of things, but I'm just like, what they'd ask me.
That it's hard work.
Yeah, and also that, that there are steps you need to take before you start. Everybody's all excited, and it's like, step back a little bit. We don't want to hit record yet. We want to go back. Like I said, like the topic thing to me is huge. Like get your topics so that you know exactly what they want. I mean, more or less, right? I mean, and there are ways of doing that will really make it a better podcast. And it's like sometimes they just, hey, let's do this or that or this. It just makes no rhyme or reason. It's kind of really targeted. Have a season, and seasons are great too. The whole season thing is just, I wish I had known that before when I was doing it. When I was doing the Meeting podcast 15 years ago, like do a season of some subject,
Yeah.
Or topic. Like that to me is fun, like.
There's a great podcast, Consequence of Sound, the music website does it, and it was called, I can never remember the damn name of this podcast, but what they would do is their season was only 3 episodes. And they would break down, or they still do, the podcast is still going on, but they break down the most famous albums of all time and why they are so famous. Yeah. So they take the Clash's London Calling and they take you, through the band, then how the recording process went, and then what was the cultural zeitgeist at the time that made that album just explode into the consciousness. And it's really cool to listen to something broken down like that, because you can go really deep into this thing. Each episode was only about 20 or 30 minutes long, but you got an hour and a half of one album.
Yeah, all those things. I mean, I wish like associations could do more like actually like creative stuff besides interviews and stuff. I mean, they can, but it's like just what you're saying. It's like deep diving into things is like, that's the beauty of podcasts too. Like, what's that hardcore history one that's been going on forever? Does he still do that? It went on. It could be like 6 hours sometimes, the podcast, but he would deep dive into something, like, and it was fascinating. Like, and you could stop and start it,
Well, and that's one thing I wish a lot, like before someone said, and obviously we don't practice what we preach here, but it would be really great for associations that want to start podcasts to start going to listen to things that aren't just interviews, right? Go and turn on NPR and listen to This American Life. Those are podcasts.
Yeah, this guy, Sean Howard, I'm a huge fan of his. He has this Fable and Folly network of shows, and they're all like audio fiction shows. And it's just great. Like, they're just these crazy shows of like, not crazy, but they're all these different shows these people are putting together that, at their actual shows. It's like an audio play kind of a thing, right? And they're fantastic. Like, and he's selling ads on there too. It's a network, and they're making money from those, which is amazing. Like these crazy shows of,
well, and here goes another rabbit hole. For associations, start a podcast network for your industry, right? That's a whole other revenue generator where you can actually then run ads against all those podcasts. They're all industry podcasts. If you're in sheep shearing, Norelco would love to run an ad on every single podcast that needs a razor.
Yeah, that's the thing too. If your association doesn't want to start a podcast, go look and see what other ones are in your industry and go sponsor it or become a part of that one. That's these hosts of these industry podcasts are funny. They become little rock stars themselves when you go to an event. I just get a kick out of, I had to talk this guy into doing this thing, and then when he gets on site at the event, it's like, oh, it's because people listen to him every day. They're in his, or not every day, but whenever they do it, that person becomes a little. They know him because they've listened to him.
Well, and that's the thing for people in an industry that want to start a podcast. You actually don't need to be that interesting. The people that you bring on need to be interesting.
That was my meetings podcast. I brought other people on, and I sounded smart because they were saying the smart things.
Yeah, well, I do it every day. That's why I hang out with Bob. He's way smarter than I.
I'm sorry, I'm distracted slightly because we're due to talk to somebody else shortly.
Yes.
All right.
And here we are.
I'm happy to run into time. Fun to talk to you guys.
No, we're at 29 minutes, which we did it exactly in 30 minutes, which was fantastic. Mike, you and I have some other catching up to do, so I'll ping you. I know we were going to talk about some other stuff, so let's do that. But thank you so much for getting up. Most people don't know, but Mike is actually on Pacific time. So it's a little early for you.
Yeah, sorry I was a little late. And sorry about the machinery here. Because
that's okay. So what time is it for you, Mike?
It's great when it doesn't work.
That's why we're professionals. We can actually get things to work and then go on with the show. So on that note, it was awesome having you.
Have a great week.
Thank you so much for taking part in our 24th consecutive episode. Thank you so much, Mike. We'll get you back on.